Hedges are a really important feature of the landscape. They're fantastic for wildlife. They connect up areas of habitat. Lots of species will hunt along hedgerows, nest in hedgerows and use them in other ways. They're also fantastic for people. They'll store carbon, they can reduce soil erosion from fields, they can give protection for livestock, and they can even draw up water and reduce flooding. So hedgerows are such an important feature of the landscape. The problem is that we've lost about 50% of hedgerows since the Second World War. So what we can do to help is to restore hedgerows to make sure they're in good condition and to plant new hedgerows. And that will definitely help the connectivity of the landscape, which will be great for people and for wildlife. Hedges definitely need some form of continual management, and hedges have a life cycle like a lot of other habitat features. So you could go from a brand new planted hedge, that will grow up. Hedges will need some sort of cutting, often done by flailing hedges like this one behind me. And over time, these hedges develop gaps in the base and become a bit thinner. And ultimately, you can end up with a line of quite big trees. You need some definite management, in which case coppicing or hedge laying can restore those hedges and reset them back to the start of their cycle. Hedge laying is a relatively recent skill, and it would have been developed so that you could regenerate a hedge whilst continuing to keep it as being livestock proof. But now in Norfolk, there's not so much livestock, it's mostly arable farming, and so hedge laying is less frequently seen, but still a fantastic way of regenerating a hedge. So to get this hedge ready for laying, the first thing we did was to take the tree guards off. Not all hedges will have tree guards. This is quite a young hedge, so we got in and took away the tree guards. Now we're cleaning up the front of the hedge, so any small branches that are sticking out, we're tidying those up. What we want to get to is so that each individual stem of the hedge is separate from the next one, so that when we're laying them, they're not entangled in each other. The stem here has been prepared and is ready to be laid, so over to Alison to demonstrate the next step.
Okay, so if we're looking at this stem, you said it's ready, and I can see it's ready because it's clear from the other stems around it. The base is also clear, which is important. We have a marker which will indicate roughly the direction in which we're going to lay it, and that will help us.
Yes.
Making a cut as close to the ground as possible, probably here about 1 inch from the ground because it's a young stem. If it's an older stem, we go higher. I'm going through at a slight angle. It's tilted up. It'll stop the blade from getting stuck. But I initially only want to go through about halfway.
Winter is the time when we undertake hedge laying, normally from around October to February or March. That will be because there's not going to be birds nesting in the hedge during winter. Also, the trees are dormant during winter, so we can cut them without damaging the tree at all.
Make a mark there. I'm going to start axing in until I've met my saw cut. And once I've met my saw cut, I can just stop, just remove the little bit of debris that's there, give me a better look. At this stage, we're halfway through. There's still some strength in there, but I know it's not ready to go because now I'm going to do the finer touches to it with the axe.
Yep.
Use both hands, just feel across here. You want to make sure it's the same thickness across from one side to the other. I've changed the angle at which I'm using the axe now. I'm working with it, going down the grain like that, because all I'm aiming to achieve now is a longer, slimmer cut down its length.
Most species are absolutely fine to hedge lay. Generally, if you can coppice a species and it regenerates, that means it's going to be a good species to hedge lay. Hawthorn, like this hedge here, hedge lays brilliantly. One species that you don't want to be hedge laying is beech, because that doesn't regenerate very well.
It's always better to use two hands, and it stops you from twisting it. It gives better control. These smaller ones are enough to stop it from going over. And I'm pulling it only in one direction, listening to any cracks.
It's really slow and steady.
Yeah, it gives you greater control. We're laying it at a 45-degree angle. So it's more or less in place, but what you'll find is that the small branches there are enough to catch it, and you can lop through that one there for me. It's in place now, and the next thing that we ought to do is put a stake in. This is a stake I want, so I take my arm, and somewhere in this region I need to put the next stake.
So the stakes will all end up at an arm's length apart and lower half of your arm in a straight line.
Now that I know that that's secure, I go back to this. I get rid of the debris. Just be careful at this stage that you don't go too far with the saw. Now the pleature coming from there rather than splitting down. So this is like a textbook style one. When you look it up, you'll see that the pleature is bending from there. Sometimes if the split goes further down, you can't control it as much. So this is what we're aiming for. From here, nice clean cut, sloping down, a bit like coppicing, and then we would expect all the growth to come just below the base of that cut. Every stake needs a piece of heathering. This has been identified as the place we go under.
Under, yeah.
You now join what's out here, so you can let go of this.
Yeah. You twist them together.
Twisting them together. So the heatherings are nicely bound. Okay. And you've gone under here, so you're now going to go over that one and forward. So making sure the heatherings are always finishing forward.
You actually feel that you know a bit more about how hedges grow, how they're valued for wildlife, and also how they're going to change over time.
We'll be looking at hedge management, and hedge laying, I think, will be part of that. We'll factor that in as we go forward.
Here we are with a section of hedge which we've laid today, really giving the hedge a new lease of life and helping it to regenerate.